Title: The New World Order Chapter 1. The Rise. It was the year 2035 when the world first caught wind of what many had whispered about in shadows for decades. The New World Order, NWO. A secret coalition of powerful elites, governments, and corporations had quietly consolidated control of the world's most vital resources, systems, and economies. It wasn't a sudden takeover. It had been unfolding over the last century, a careful orchestration of global events, crises, and conflicts. To most people, the world still seemed as it always had. Governments bickered, wars erupted, and economies fluctuated. But behind the scenes, a powerful group had been pulling the strings. Now, they were ready to reveal themselves. The NWO presented itself not as an authoritarian regime but as the savior of a fractured world. Their leaders, known as the Council, spoke of unity, prosperity, and peace. They promised a utopian future, free from poverty, war, and disease. But their vision of peace came with a price: complete control. Among the first steps they took was the introduction of the Global Integration Initiative, GII, an economic and technological framework that bound every nation together under a single digital currency, a unified global government, and the promise of equal opportunities. They used advanced AI, surveillance, and a fully integrated digital economy to establish a new global order that left little room for dissent. The old systems, national borders, political parties, even ideologies, began to crumble. People were promised stability, prosperity, and security. For a time, it worked. People bought into the narrative of a better tomorrow, one where every need would be met, and all would be well in a world finally healed from the divisions of the past. But not everyone was convinced. Some saw the cost of this new peace: the erosion of freedom, privacy, and personal autonomy. These dissenters called themselves the Resistance, a loosely connected network of individuals, activists, and former government officials who had refused to sell their souls to the NWO. Among them was a former journalist named Elena Cruz, a fiery, passionate woman whose investigative reporting had once brought her fame, and who now found herself on the run for uncovering truths the NWO wanted hidden. Chapter 2. The Awakening. Elena had seen the signs. She had watched as social media platforms, once sources of free speech, turned into propaganda machines controlled by the Council. She had seen how the digital economy was engineered to keep people tethered to the system, their every action tracked, monitored, and manipulated by an AI so sophisticated it could predict every possible move. The NWO had created a world where dissent was not only dangerous but almost impossible. Anyone who questioned the system was labeled a terrorist or a conspiracy theorist, their lives turned upside down by targeted surveillance, character assassination, and public shaming. Elena's turning point came one night when she uncovered a classified document, the Directive. It outlined the NWO's ultimate plan to restructure the world population through mandatory genetic engineering, behavioral modification programs, and the mass implementation of neural interfaces that would bind the human mind to the global network. A world of perfect citizens, who never questioned authority, who lived in harmony under the NWO's rule. The document confirmed her worst fears. The New World Order wasn't just about control, it was about erasing what made people human. Elena went public with the information, sending the documents to trusted contacts in underground media networks. It was a calculated risk, but she had no choice. She knew that exposing the truth was the only way to awaken the masses. The NWO's control over the flow of information was so absolute that even the most shocking revelations couldn't break through the digital firewall they had erected around the truth. But Elena's exposé sparked something. A ripple. The Resistance reached out to her, first in whispers, then in encrypted messages. The people were waking up. The first signs of rebellion began in the heart of the NWO's power. The global headquarters, a gleaming skyscraper that reached into the clouds. It was here that the Council made their decrees and dictated the course of world events. It was also here that Elena's journey would take her, as part of a larger plan to bring the New World Order to its knees. Chapter 3. The Fall of the Council. Elena and the Resistance had spent months gathering intelligence, forging alliances with former government officials, hackers, and disgruntled corporate insiders. They knew that a direct attack on the NWO would be suicide, so they had to outsmart them. The plan was simple but risky. Infiltrate the global headquarters and expose the Council's true agenda to the world, using the very technology that had been designed to suppress them. Elena's heart raced as she stood in the shadows of the towering building. The sleek, futuristic architecture of the global headquarters was a symbol of the NWO's absolute dominance. It looked like something out of a sci-fi dystopia. A tower that seemed to pierce the heavens, its lights never dimming, always casting an otherworldly glow over the city. She had entered through a back door, a discreet access point that only a few high-ranking resistance members knew about. Now, she was inside, in the belly of the beast. Elena made her way to the central hub, a room where the council convened, where decisions were made about the future of the world. She could hear the voices of the council members, muffled but unmistakable. They were discussing the final phase of their plan, the global implementation of Project Harmony, a system of mind control and genetic enhancement designed to make every citizen obedient, docile, and completely aligned with the NWO's vision. She stepped closer, heart pounding. The resistance had managed to hack into the building's security systems, and now Elena had a chance to do what she had promised, the chance to bring the truth to light. She was about to broadcast their discussion to every screen, every network, every device on the planet. But just as she was about to push the button, the door to the room opened, and a figure stepped inside, a figure she recognized immediately. It was Counselor Jameson, the man who had once been one of the most vocal proponents of the NWO's vision. He was now the face of the New World Order, the public face of their benevolent rule. Elena had always suspected something about him. There was something too polished, too perfect about his persona. Now, she could see the cold, calculating mind behind the smile. "Elena," he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I knew you'd come. You always were persistent." She stood her ground, defiant. "It's over, Jameson. The world knows what you're doing now. People won't stand for it." Jameson stepped forward, his eyes narrowing. "You think you can stop it? You think the world will rise up against us? You don't understand. This is the future. We are the architects of it. People will accept what's coming because they will have no choice. But they do have a choice," Elena said. "The truth is out. You can't erase that. You can't control everyone forever." Jameson chuckled softly, as if humoring a child. "We've been in control for decades, Elena. A few whispers of rebellion won't change anything." Before Elena could respond, the lights in the room flickered, and a warning sounded throughout the building. Someone had triggered the alarm, someone in the resistance. They had found out about her mission. In that moment, everything changed. The resistance launched a full-scale assault on the NWO headquarters, activating fail-safes they had planted in the building's infrastructure. The power went out, the surveillance systems were taken offline, and chaos erupted inside the tower. Elena could hear the distant sounds of explosions and gunfire as the resistance made their move. Jameson's face darkened. "You think this is the end? You think your little rebellion will change anything? We are the future." Elena didn't reply. She knew what she had to do. With one final, resolute move, she pressed the button. The world went silent. And then, the truth came crashing down. Chapter 4. The beginning of the end. The broadcast spread like wildfire. Elena had done it. In an instant, every screen, every phone, every connected device across the globe flickered with the same shocking images. The meeting of the council, their discussions about the genetic modifications, the mind control protocols, and their grand design to mold humanity into obedient, perfect citizens under their totalitarian rule. The footage was raw, unfiltered, and undeniably damning. There was no hiding it now. The world was waking up, and it was no longer willing to look away. In the streets, people stopped in their tracks. Offices emptied. Shops closed. For the first time in years, people across continents were united, not by fear, but by the burning need to understand, to act, to resist. Elena's broadcast had stripped away the veil that the NWO had so carefully constructed. No longer were the elite hidden behind propaganda. The truth was out, and it was terrifying. Across the world, resistance groups took to the streets. Governments, once complicit or powerless under the weight of the NWO's influence, found themselves scrambling to respond. In some places, the military was deployed to quash the uprisings. In others, peaceful protests erupted as citizens tore down surveillance equipment and rejected the system of control they had once embraced, or at least tolerated. But the NWO was not without its countermeasures. Elena had expected a backlash, but the speed at which the council retaliated left her breathless. Even as her broadcast continued to play across the globe, the NWO began to shut down the most critical infrastructures. Satellites were disabled. Global communications were interrupted. Cities were plunged into darkness as their digital grids were taken offline. Within hours, the world descended into a blackout, a digital dark age. Elena stood in the control room, watching the chaos unfold. Her heart raced, not with fear, but with a strange mix of hope and uncertainty. She had given the world a chance to fight back, but now the true battle was beginning. The NWO wasn't just a government, it was a system, a network, and it had deep roots. In the midst of the global unrest, Counselor Jameson was nowhere to be found. His disappearance only fueled the growing suspicions that he, along with the rest of the council, had planned for such an eventuality. Elena had no illusions. Jameson had known this moment was coming. In the depths of the NWO's operations, plans had already been set in motion to maintain control at any cost. Chapter 5. The final decision. A week passed in a blur of riots, protests, and military crackdowns. The streets were filled with angry voices, demanding justice, demanding answers. Governments that had once bowed to the NWOs will found themselves under siege by the very citizens they were supposed to serve. Elena's exposé had ignited a revolution, but it had also exposed the fragile nature of the world the council had built. In the Resistance's underground base, Elena and the leaders of various rebel factions huddled around a table, poring over the data they had gathered. The NWO had been relentless in their efforts to maintain order, but their network had begun to fray. The global grid was down, but the NWO's last line of defense, their secret network of bunkers, hidden AI-controlled command centers, and autonomous drones, remained intact. "The council is gone, for now," said Marcus, one of the resistance leaders. He was a former intelligence officer who had turned against the NWO after uncovering their covert activities. "But they're not stupid. They're already making plans to regroup. They've gone underground. If we don't act fast, they'll rebuild from the shadows." Elena nodded, feeling the weight of the moment pressing on her. She had given the world the spark, but it was up to them to keep the fire burning. "What do we do now? We need to find them," Marcus said. "The NWO isn't a group of disjointed leaders anymore. It's an ideology, an infrastructure. We can't take it down by going after a few individuals. We need to dismantle the entire system." "But they've thought of that," Elena replied, her voice heavy with the burden of what she was suggesting. "The council left us a legacy of control. Every global database, every digital transaction, every weaponized AI, it's all interwoven. If we strike, we risk taking the whole world down with us. And if we don't strike, they'll come back stronger, more prepared." A tense silence fell over the room. It was clear that the resistance was on the edge of a precipice. One wrong move could lead to complete chaos, or total failure. Elena's mind raced. She had been part of the movement to expose the truth, to give people the choice to rise up. But what now? Was there a way to not only break the NWO's control but also ensure that humanity could rebuild in the aftermath? The power of the NWO had always been their monopoly on information and technology. Elena's eyes landed on the only option left, the one that could truly free the world from their clutches. "The AI," she said, her voice suddenly clear with conviction. "We need to take control of the AI systems they've been using to track, manipulate, and control. It's not just a weapon, it's the heart of their power." Marcus looked at her, his brow furrowed. "The AI? You want us to hack into their central systems?" Elena nodded. "Yes, but more than that, we need to turn it off. We need to stop their surveillance grid, disrupt their neural interfaces, and give people the freedom to think for themselves again. We can't keep fighting blind. We need to free the minds of the world." The room grew quiet again as everyone processed the enormity of her plan. Taking control of the AI was no small task. It would be a suicide mission for anyone who tried to do it alone. But Elena knew this was the only way. The NWO had created a world where the population was shackled by technology, where no one could escape their influence. If they could take that away, if they could break the chains, then perhaps the world could find its way back to something resembling true freedom. Chapter 6. The Descent. Elena, Marcus, and a small group of trusted operatives made their way to the heart of the NWO's hidden facility. A sprawling underground complex beneath one of the world's most isolated locations. The facility housed the central processing units that powered the NWO's AI systems. This was where the final battle would take place. As they descended into the bowels of the facility, the air grew thick with tension. Every step was measured, every noise amplified in the silence of the underground world. They knew that the NWO wasn't gone for good. There would be no second chances. Their objective was clear. Find the central AI core and disable it before the NWO could launch a counteroffensive. The deeper they went, the more they realized how far the NWO's influence had spread. The technology they had built wasn't just a network of machines. It was a living entity, learning, adapting, and responding to every move they made. As Elena stood before the terminal that would control the AI's shutdown, she hesitated for only a moment. This was it, the final moment where the fate of the world would be decided. The door behind her slid open with a hiss. It was too late to turn back. Jameson stepped into the room, a ghost of the man he had been, his face gaunt and his eyes cold with the weight of his failure. "You've made a mistake, Elena," he said, his voice as calm as ever. "This isn't just about control. It's about survival. Without us, humanity will fall back into chaos. You'll never rebuild this world. You'll only watch it crumble." Elena turned to face him, her heart steady. "Then let it crumble. We rebuild from the ground up. But we'll do it without you." She pressed the final command. The lights flickered one last time. The world held its breath.